With the release of the Tamagotchi Uni, I've seen various people, mainly Digimon fans, who are interested in dipping their toes into the Tamagotchi franchise. But perhaps they don't find the $140 price tag on the latest release particularly appealing as someone new to this franchise. So let's look at some options for those wanting to get started with their first Tamagotchi. First of all, I would not recommend the anniversary release like I do with the franchise's little brother Digimon. While the DM20 is an anniversary edition that combines and adds to the original Digimon Virtual Pet release, the Tamagotchi re-release is effectively a worse one-to-one remake of the original. So it has all the features of the original, but poor sound quality and various bugs added in. The original Tamagotchi releases aren't that expensive, so if you do want the original experience, just try and get your hands on one of the original Tamagotchi releases, either a P1 or a P2, which is a version 1 or version 2. The specific differences can be found on the Tamagotchi Wikia. Again, the re-releases are called Gen 1 and Gen 2, and are effectively just the same thing as the original, but again, much worse. So while the Tamagotchi re-releases can be found in various different shells and they are very pretty, I would still recommend just trying to pick up one of the original ones rather than the more recent re-releases. Unless, of course, you find one really cheap, I would still recommend against it, but you're welcome to pick it up if you do want something that is really accessible, because they are the easiest to get Tamagotchi, and they're most likely, unless you live in Australia and you're getting them first hand, where they are $50, they tend to be probably one of the cheaper options, but I would still recommend against it. So other than the original release, which again I'm not a huge fan of, I do recommend any Tamagotchi Connection release. So these are ones that were released in the mid to late 2000s, and they have like this little infrared part at the front, or the top rather. They do have the Bunny ROM clones, which I'm a fan of Bunny ROM, but not a fan of when they try to imitate another release. So do be mindful of how many buttons they have. The Bunny ROM will have 4 buttons. The actual official Tamagotchi Connection will have 3 buttons. So the amount of buttons is definitely a giveaway for whether or not it's a bootleg or not. It's typically not a concern for me because I can know straight away, but I can very much believe that someone who doesn't know what a Tamagotchi is might accidentally pick up a Bunny ROM, which that being a knockoff or a fake version of the Tamagotchi Connection. However, while I do recommend the Tamagotchi Connections as I believe them to be fairly fun, however, they have been fairly pricey to buy lately, which make them harder for me to recommend. What I do recommend instead of the re-releases, especially if you are fairly busy and want something fairly low maintenance, are any of the Tamagotchi Nano releases. There are many different versions of these, and they are everywhere, and they can be bought either in store or online secondhand fairly cheaply. Again, in Australia, they're about $40 to $50 depending on which version or which franchise it's crossed over with, but again, you can buy them fairly cheaply secondhand if you just look online. You might also find these appealing if there's any specific franchise that Bandai has had a collaboration with for a Tamagotchi Nano release, such as Demon Slayer, Jurassic Park, One Piece, even Hatsune Miku, because of course there's a Hatsune Miku collaboration with Tamagotchi. So if you have any specific franchise that you're really interested in, you might find that there's a Tamagotchi Nano collaboration, which makes it even more appealing. I'm a huge fan of the Tamagotchi Nano releases. You can check out any of the other Tamagotchi Nano videos in this channel to know that I love them so very much. So if you want any specific information about them, chances are I've already done both an unboxing video and a review on that release. Again, big fan of them. I find them pretty easy to look after, especially if I'm having a busy day or a busy week. They only have to be basically taken care of a few times a day, not a few times an hour like some other virtual pets. So I definitely recommend a Tamagotchi Nano, especially if you're new to virtual pets, because they are fairly low maintenance. However, if you want something that's got a little bit more depth to it, a little bit more functionality, you might find yourself a little bit bored with the Nanos, as there's not that much to do compared to other virtual pet releases. So definitely do recommend the Nano, but I can understand why they wouldn't be for everyone. Now, while I do recommend the Tamagotchi Uni if the price tag isn't a huge issue, as it is the latest and greatest, but in terms of other new colour screen releases that might cost you less than the Uni, you do have two options: the Tamagotchi Pix and the Tamagotchi Smart. Now, I've always said since the Tamagotchi Uni has been released that the Tamagotchi Uni is the perfect combination of both the Tamagotchi Smart and the Tamagotchi Pix. It has things I love from the Smart, it has things I love from the Pix combined into one package. So I'm a huge fan of the Tamagotchi Uni. It's a great addition to the franchise. The fact that you can update it with any bug fixes they have or any additional features makes me hopeful for the Tamagotchi Uni's future. However, again, if the price tag is a little bit of an issue, you do have the Pix or the Smart. So both are fairly similar in terms of how much I enjoy them, but each has a different draw in terms of functionality. The Smart has a touchscreen and uses Tamagotchi Smart cards to unlock additional items and characters, while the Pix uses a camera to interact with the world. While I personally prefer the Pix, the size is often a drawback as it is much larger than the Smart. In terms of where you can buy all these releases, this video isn't sponsored, but I use online storefronts such as Japan You Want, Zen and TCG, and Hobby Link Japan primarily, and of course proxy services such as Buyee and From Japan. Overall, yes, again, I would recommend the Uni, as I do believe it's a great starting point. However, the price really is a huge negative and makes it less attractive as somebody new to the franchise who wants an easy entry point. So there you have it. Those are my opinions on how I think someone can jump into the Tamagotchi franchise. Again, there are a lot of releases. It is a franchise that has effectively been releasing fairly consistently since 1996, so you do have a lot of options to choose from. You of course do have other older Tamagotchi releases, such as the Mothra, which from what I can see is still fairly cheap. I've mentioned that before in a few videos. That is probably one of my favourite of the older releases of the Tamagotchi, but you're probably best to use a proxy service to get one, which tends to make things a little bit more expensive for you. So I've tried to keep my recommendations to releases that you can possibly even buy within your own country, that being the Tamagotchi Nanos, which you can find in stock at wherever stock Tamagotchis in your area. For example, I'm in Australia, so the Tamagotchi Nano releases are in Target, Big W, EB Games, so places that you can effectively just go out right now and pick up. In terms of the Smart, it was only released in Japan in Japanese, so you will have to get that from a shop like Japan You Want or a proxy service or any other Japanese storefront. The Pix, in Australia at least, isn't available on shelves anymore, but again, you can probably pick it up fairly cheaply locally, secondhand, from Facebook Marketplace or whatever your Gumtree Australia equivalent is wherever you live. And some stores might still have them on clearance, so do keep your eyes open for that. There is, of course, Amazon, which does stock a lot of Tamagotchis, so you can check that store. Again, I'm not sponsored by anybody in this video. These are just my opinions on where I personally get my Tamagotchis from. I've been using Hobby Link Japan for a number of years, so I definitely do recommend them, especially because lately they have opened up, at least to Australia, more places to ship with, more courier services, because a lot of them had closed shipping to Australia during the lockdown period. So those are my opinions. Let me know your thoughts, comments, questions, especially if you do have any questions about anything that I've mentioned that hasn't been super clear. Of course, check out my other videos about any of these Tamagotchi releases, because I've released many reviews on all of them. So let me know any comments, questions in the comment section below. Like this video for Tamagotchi continuing to live in 2023. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you have subscribed, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, and of course, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!